My name is Sophia, I'm 25, and a week after I walked out, my phone lit up like a warning flare. My mother's name flashed on the screen again and again. 5 missed calls, then a voicemail that started with a whisper and ended in panic. Please, come home. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. I already knew what desperation sounded like in our family. It always showed up the moment I stopped being useful. So let me take you back to the night it began, to the exact second the truth finally stopped hiding behind smiles. It was my sister's graduation party, packed with relatives and my parents' friends, the kind of crowd that clapped on cue and judged in silence. Someone shouted for her to come outside, and when she did, they erupted, because my parents had parked a glossy convertible out front like a trophy. Keys dangled, cameras flashed. My sister laughed, twirling the key fob like the world had handed her a crown. I stood close enough to hear my mother say, proud and casual, "She deserves the best." And I waited. Not for a car, not for applause, just for proof that I existed to them as more than a pair of hands. Then came my turn. My father pressed a small box into my palms, grinning like he'd done something generous. I opened it. Sponges, gloves, a scrub brush. Cleaning sprays lined up like a punchline. The room blurred for a heartbeat, and the sound that came out of me wasn't a sob. It was a laugh I couldn't control. Quiet at first, then sharp. My mother tilted her head, unbothered, and said calmly, "You should start helping around the house." The guests went still. My sister's smile twitched. I looked at their faces and realized, ice cold, that this wasn't an accident. This was a role they'd written for me a long time ago. I set the box down like it burned, grabbed my bag, and walked out through a room full of people who suddenly didn't know where to look. Before I tell you what I did next, and what my parents said when they finally realized I was gone, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? I want to see how far this story reaches before the truth hits. The elevator ride down felt longer than it should have, like the building itself wanted me to rethink it. My reflection in the stainless steel doors didn't look like a girl storming off in a tantrum. It looked like someone who had finally heard a verdict. My hands were steady, but my chest wasn't. It wasn't heartbreak. It was something older, a pressure I'd carried so long I forgot it had a name. Outside, the air hit my face, cool and sharp. I didn't run away. I walked. That mattered to me. Running would have meant I was guilty. Walking meant I was done. My heels clicked against the pavement, a metronome to my decision. Behind me, the party kept breathing without me. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Like my absence was an inconvenience, not a wound. Somewhere above, my sister was probably still posing with the car, leaning against the hood for the perfect shot. I pictured the caption, "Hard work pays off." It almost made me laugh again. Hard work. Mine had paid for so much of their comfort. And yet somehow I was the one being gifted a scrub brush. That's when it clicked. I wasn't leaving because of cleaning supplies. I was leaving because they'd finally said the quiet part out loud. I was the shadow daughter, the one who made things smooth, so someone else could shine. And the worst part? I'd helped build that role, one, "It's fine, I'll do it," at a time. I turned the corner and the building disappeared from view, but the scene replayed on loop. My father's proud grin, my mother's calm, dismissive tone, the guests' awkward silence, the way no one stepped in. Not one adult in that crowd thought, "This is cruel." They just watched the script play out. I pulled out my phone and hovered over one contact, thumb trembling just once before I hit call. The hesitation wasn't about pride. It was fear. Fear that even the person who loved me would say, "Maybe you overreacted." Because if he said that, then the problem was me, and I couldn't survive that tonight. The line connected. "Soph?" Ryan answered, already alert in that way he always was when something was wrong. There was music in the background on his side too. A different party. A different world. "What's going on?" I tried to speak and failed. So I did the only thing I could. I told him exactly what happened, without decorating it, without begging him to validate me. "They gave her a convertible," I said, words flat, almost emotionless. "They gave me cleaning supplies, in front of everyone." I could hear him go silent, the kind of silence that holds weight, not indifference. Then a slow inhale on the other end, Ryan's version of restraint. "Where are you?" he asked. "Walking," I said. "Good," he replied. "Keep walking toward me. Drop me your location." That "good" broke something in me. A tiny knot of terror that had been waiting to hear I was wrong. I shared my location and kept moving. While I walked, I kept talking, as if narrating someone else's life. I told him about the way my mother emphasized she deserves the best, how my father laughed when the cleaning kit was revealed, how my sister didn't say a word to stop it. And then, because once you open the door, you can't control what spills out, I told him about years of smaller moments, how I'd stayed up doing my sister's essays while everyone praised her grades, how I'd taken a second job and still cooked dinner when I came home, while my parents called me so responsible, but never once said, "Thank you." "It's like I'm furniture," I muttered, "useful until they want something prettier in the room." Ryan didn't jump in with solutions. He let the ugliness exist. Finally, he said, "That wasn't a gift, Sophia. That was a label. They told you, in public, who they think you are." I didn't cry then either. I just nodded, because the word label landed like truth. We reached his street about the same time my legs started to ache, the adrenaline wearing off. By the time I reached his building, my phone had already lit up with missed calls from my parents, from my sister, from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. No voicemails yet. No apologies. Just, "Why did you leave?" And, "Where are you?" And, "Come back. Don't make a scene." Funny how they only worried about a scene after I stepped out of it. Ryan was already waiting downstairs. He didn't ask me to calm down. He didn't say, "Family is family." He opened the door, took one look at my face, and stepped aside. "Come in," he said softly. "You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. Sit." His apartment wasn't big, but it was warm in a way my parents' place had never been. Lived in, not curated. A jacket on a chair. A half-read book on the coffee table. 2 mugs already set out. Like he'd prepared for this. Over hot tea I didn't taste. I admitted something I'd never said out loud. My parents' house wasn't just a home. It was a system. And my job in that system was to absorb chaos so everyone else could pretend they were fine. "That's called resentment," Ryan said quietly. "It's what happens when your love gets used as free labor." He wasn't trying to sound like a therapist, but he'd done his reading. And resentment is a defense, your brain's way of saying enough when your mouth can't. I stared into the steam rising from my cup and imagined it as the shape of my old life evaporating. Ryan listened, then did something that shifted the night from pain to power. "You've been managing their life more than you realize," he said carefully. "Your time, your labor, even their paperwork. You're like their unofficial operations manager. If you step back, they'll feel it. Not because you're cruel, because they're dependent." I thought about the bills I paid online for them, just this once, the emails I wrote in my father's tone, the appointments I booked for my mother, the admin work I did for my sister's scholarship applications while she posted selfies. I stared at him, and for the first time I didn't imagine revenge as screaming or breaking things. I imagined it as absence, clean, surgical, undeniable. "What if they fall apart?" I whispered. Ryan's eyes didn't flinch. Maybe that's what happens when you take away a crutch. They either learn to walk, or they fall and finally admit they need help, not a servant. I slept in his spare room with my bag still zipped, like my body didn't trust safety yet. In the dark, I kept seeing two futures. One where I went back tomorrow, apologized and smoothed it over, and one where I didn't. In the first, nothing changed except my resentment got heavier. In the second, my parents' image cracked in front of their friends, their bills, their bank. Sometime before morning, I made one decision that changed everything. I would stop fixing what I didn't break, even if the fallout embarrassed them in front of the same people they loved impressing. The first week away was not a montage of freedom. There were no cute, new life selfies, no dramatic haircut, no triumphant soundtrack. It was awkward, quiet, and full of tiny withdrawals, like my nervous system kept checking for punishment. My body had been conditioned. When things went wrong, I stepped in. When tension rose, I smoothed it. When someone raised their voice, I shrank. Ryan kept his promise not to crowd me. He gave me space, but he also gave me structure. Breakfast at the same time every morning, a walk around the block, job applications in the afternoon, therapy links he'd saved without pushing them on me. No pressure, he always said, just options. I told myself I didn't need therapy. I wasn't broken. Then I flinched when his upstairs neighbor dropped a spoon, and my heart raced like a bomb had gone off. That's when I realized my body had been trained to anticipate explosions. That's what living as the family buffer does. You learn the temperature of every room before you enter it. On the third day, I woke up with that familiar tightness in my chest, the one that usually meant someone was about to ask me for a favor. No one did. The silence felt wrong, like a missed alarm. I instinctively reached for my phone to check if my mother needed a bill paid, or if my sister needed a ride, or if my father had forwarded an email with, "Can you handle this?" in the subject line. Nothing. The family group chat was oddly still. For about 5 seconds, I felt forgotten. Then I recognized the trick. My brain equated not needed with not loved, family Stockholm syndrome. I'd been held emotionally hostage so long that their crisis felt like my oxygen. Ryan found me staring at my phone and leaned against the doorway. "You know, withdrawal is supposed to feel bad at first, right?" he said. "Like when you stop drinking too much coffee. Your body screams, but it doesn't mean you need more coffee. It means your system is recalibrating." I rolled my eyes, but the metaphor stuck. Mid-week, my phone buzzed with a notification from our old family group chat. Nothing dramatic, just my mother posting a smiley face and dinners at 7, as if I hadn't disappeared. It wasn't care, it was denial. A public performance that said, "Look, everything's normal," just in case anyone else in the chat was watching. I stared at the message for a long time. Old Sophia would have sent back, "I'm sorry, I'll be there," even if she'd done nothing wrong, just to keep the peace. New Sophia typed nothing. I watched as my mother's message sat there, unacknowledged by me, but praised by relatives with heart emojis and "can't wait" texts. The next day, a bank alert popped up on my screen. An autopay failed. Not my autopay, theirs. My stomach tightened because I recognized the account number immediately. For years, I'd been the invisible hand behind their adult life, scheduling payments, calling customer service, sorting mail, fixing mistakes before they became consequences. They didn't thank me because thanking me would have meant admitting they leaned on me. I always told myself I was helping my family. But there's a difference between helping and preventing natural consequences. I didn't touch the alert. I didn't fix it. That was new. "You saw it, didn't you?" Ryan asked that evening as I sat motionless on the couch. "The bank notification." I nodded. You know you're not a bad person for letting adults deal with their own debts. They're my parents, I said automatically. So? He replied gently. Parents are people, not gods. People who make choices. People who sign papers. That night, I finally clicked one of the therapy links. The woman on the screen talked about parentification, about children who become emotional and practical caregivers for their own parents. She described kids who handled adult responsibilities while being told they were so mature, kids who were praised for being reliable, but never comforted when they were scared. I listened and felt like she was reading my diary out loud. When she said, "Resentment is often a sign that you've been giving beyond your capacity for too long," I had to pause the video. I thought of the scrub brush, the gloves, the way my mother said, "You should start helping around the house," like I hadn't been helping for years in ways no one saw. On the 7th day, the call came. Not the fake cheerful, come to dinner nonsense. This one was raw. Mom's name flashed, then Dad's, then Mom again. My chest tightened with something complicated. Fear, anger, and a twisted hope that maybe, finally, they understood. I answered on the third ring because part of me still wanted to believe they were calling to apologize. "Sophia," my mother said, and her voice sounded thinner than I remembered. "Where are you?" I didn't give her my address. "I'm safe," I said. She exhaled like that was permission to collapse. In the background, I could hear dishes clinking, a TV muttering, the faint echo of the life I'd stepped out of. "We need you to come home," she rushed out. "Just, please. Your father is dealing with something at work, and bills are piling up, and your sister—" She cut herself off, like she'd almost admitted the wrong name in the wrong moment. There it was again. My value measured by their crisis. I waited for the apology that never arrived. Instead, she went straight to need. That's when guilt tried to crawl back into my throat, wearing the mask of duty. Ryan, sitting across from me, didn't interrupt. He just watched my face like he was reading the old pattern trying to reattach itself. "Mom," I said, and my voice didn't shake, which surprised me. "Tell me exactly what's happening." There was a pause, tiny but revealing, because the truth is, when people have used your labor as their safety net, they don't expect you to ask for details. They expect you to show up and handle it. "It's complicated," she finally whispered. "No," I said softly. "Complicated is what you call it when you don't want me to see the whole picture." Another pause. Then, in a tone I'd never heard from her, afraid, she said, "Just come home, Sophia, please." And for the first time, the power flipped. They were the ones begging, and I was the one choosing. I hung up with a promise to think about it, then stared at my phone like it was a loaded weapon. I didn't sleep after that call. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of Ryan's fridge, hearing my mother's please echo like it belonged to a stranger, because it did. The mother I needed would have said, "I'm sorry we humiliated you." She would have asked what I needed. She would have wondered how I survived that moment with all those eyes on me. Instead, she went straight to the only version of me she valued, Sophia the fixer. By morning, my head hurt from thinking in circles, so I did something I rarely allowed myself to do. I wrote it down. Not poetry, not a diary confession. A list. On one side of the page, what I have done for them. On the other, what they have done for me. I started small. Paid their internet when they forgot. Called the bank after Dad overdrafted. Cleaned the apartment before guests arrived. Then bigger. Helped with my sister's scholarship essays. Took time off work to drive Mom to appointments. Covered utilities when Dad's business deal fell through. On their side of the paper, I wrote roof over my head and food, and then I stalled. It's not that they hadn't done anything. They had. but the emotional column looked painfully thin. Proud of you was always attached to how useful I was. We're so lucky to have you, was always said when I solved a problem for them. The paper looked like a balance sheet, and the imbalance was obscene. That's when the childhood memories surfaced, uninvited. Me at 12, standing on a chair to wash dishes while my sister watched TV. My mother handing me a mop with the same casual certainty she used at the party. My father saying, "You're the responsible one," like it was a crown, not a collar. My sister getting praised for a B while I got a lecture for an A- because you can do better. The cleaning supplies at the party weren't random. They were symbolic. They were a reminder of my place. In therapy terms, Ryan said later, it was conditioning. In my own words, it was a cage disguised as family. I paced the small room, then stopped pacing, then started again. Part of me wanted to run back and rescue them from their mess. Another part wanted to watch them finally face the world without my invisible hands propping everything up. That war inside me was the real battle, not them versus me, but duty versus self-respect. Ryan knocked lightly on the doorframe. "You're wearing a path into the floor," he said. I stopped. "They're going to lose everything," I blurted. "Good," he said quietly. I stared at him, shocked. He shrugged. "Or not. Maybe they'll scrape by. But either way, they'll finally feel the weight of their own choices." "Why is that bad?" "Because they're my parents," I said, the old script flaring up. "Because I'm their daughter." "No," he countered, voice gentle but firm. "Because you were taught that love equals sacrifice. You learned that the more you bleed, the more you matter. That's not love. That's emotional debt." His words hit something deep. Emotional debt. That's what I'd been paying off for years, with interest. I picked up my phone again, the contact icon for Mom glowing like a test. "I have to call her," I said. Ryan nodded. "Okay, but this time, you don't call as their solution. You call as their adult daughter with boundaries." She answered fast, breathy, like she'd been holding her phone all morning. "Sophia." "Speak plainly," I said. The sound of my own voice surprised me. It was calm, almost clinical. "What happened?" She tried to slide around it again. Work trouble, payments, stress. Vague words meant to trigger my fix-it reflex. I didn't let them. "Did you refinance the house?" I asked, going straight for the jugular. Silence. I could hear her swallow. Your father did," she said, and the way she blamed him told me it was both of them. "For your sister's future," she added too quickly, like that made it noble. The convertible flashed in my mind again, the camera flashes, the applause. "And you thought I'd come back and patch it?" I said. She started crying. Real tears this time, messy and unpretty. "We didn't mean, you did," I cut in, calm as glass. "You meant exactly what you said in front of everyone. I'm help. I'm not family." "That's not true," she protested. "You're our daughter. Of course you are. We just..." "Just what?" I asked. "Just assumed I'd sacrifice my life to clean up decisions I didn't make? Just assumed I'd risk my credit, my sanity, my time. So you wouldn't be embarrassed?" There was nothing but her sobbing on the line. For a moment, my old instincts screamed at me to comfort her, to apologize for making her cry. But another thought cut through like a scalpel. Who comforted you when you went home from that party with a box of cleaning supplies and a laugh stuck in your throat? No one. "I'm not coming home to be your safety net," I told her. Each word felt like stepping onto a bridge I'd never crossed before. "I will not be punished for your choices." "Sophia, please," she whispered. "We need you." "You need an accountant and a lawyer," I said. Not a daughter you can use as both. I could practically hear the moment she realized she couldn't guilt me back into place, the shift in her breathing, the way her sentences started, then died. Your father will be furious, she said at last, like that was a threat. I know, I replied. He'll have to learn what it's like to be furious without me fixing the mess afterward. Here's the question that haunted me as I ended the call. Have you ever been made to feel like a shadow in your own family? And what would it take for you to finally step out of it? I hung up, set my phone down, and for the first time my guilt didn't win. Instead, something else slid into its place. Resolve. 2 days later, the trigger arrived, the kind of message designed to hook the part of me that still wanted their love. It wasn't from my mother. It was from an unfamiliar number with a photo attachment, a notice taped to our apartment door. Final warning. My throat tightened as I zoomed in. They weren't just stressed, they were cornered. Ryan watched me read it, then asked one simple question. Do you want to go because you're scared for them? Or because you're scared of who you become if you don't? That question hit harder than any insult. I realized I was afraid of both. Afraid they'd lose everything. Afraid I'd walk back in and shrink. So I made a plan that wasn't surrender and wasn't cruelty either. It was control. I would go, but not to fix things quietly. I would go to confront them where their pride lived. In the living room, in front of the family narrative they'd curated, in the same space where they'd handed me my place. I dressed deliberately, simple, sharp, not performative. On the subway ride, I rehearsed lines like a prosecutor, not a daughter. Because daughters in my family were either adored or used, and I refused both roles. When I reached the apartment, I didn't knock timidly. I rang the bell once, firm, and waited. The door swung open, and my mother's face flooded with relief so fast it almost looked like love. She reached for me, but I stepped back. We need to talk, I said, and my voice made her hands freeze midair. Behind her, my sister appeared, hair perfect, expression defensive in a way that told me she knew more than she'd admitted. Wow, she said, trying to sound amused. You're back. I met her eyes. Not like before, I replied. My father came from the kitchen with a forced smile that cracked at the edges. Sophia, he said, like my name was a negotiation. I walked past them without asking permission, took one look at the cluttered stack of unopened mail on the counter, and felt the old irony rise. When I was here, that pile never existed. Sit, I told them. Not asked, told. And that was the first moment they realized I wasn't returning as their employee. I was returning as the consequence. Dinner wasn't dinner. It was a courtroom with plates. They tried small talk. How's work? How's Ryan? Are you eating enough? And I let it die naturally, because that's what lies deserve. Tell me about the refinance, I said, and the fork in my father's hand stopped midair. My mother's eyes flicked to my sister, then away. My sister rolled her shoulders like she was bored, but her fingers tightened around her glass. We did what we had to do, my father said, voice stiff. For the family. I laughed once, quiet, sharp. For which family? I asked. Because I watched you buy her a car with borrowed money while you handed me cleaning supplies and called it helping around the house. That's not family. That's a hierarchy. My sister snapped. Oh my God, can you stop acting like a victim? It was a joke. No, I said. It was training. My mother started pleading, saying they were under pressure, saying they didn't think, saying they assumed I'd understand. I leaned forward. You assumed I'd absorb it, I corrected. My father's voice rose. You don't get to judge us after abandoning us. That word, abandoning, was gasoline. I didn't abandon you, I said, loud enough that the room vibrated. I resigned. My sister scoffed, and I turned to her fully. Do you even know what that convertible cost? I asked. Do you know what they signed? She hesitated, just a beat too long. That told me everything. She'd enjoyed the gift without asking who paid. My father tried to end it. Enough. If you're here to attack us, leave. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed steady. Gladly, I said. But not before I say this clearly so no one can rewrite it later. I am not your safety net. I will not co-sign your choices with my life. My mother whispered my name like a warning. Sophia, please. No, I said. You used please only when you needed me. Here's what happens now. You face your consequences out loud, like you forced me to face mine. Geri. My father stood abruptly, chair scraping. Get out, he barked. And I did. But not before I slid one printed document onto the table, an itemized summary of what I had covered for years, the accounts I managed, the payments I scheduled, the invisible work that kept their image intact. My mother stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. My sister's face drained. My father reached for it, and I stopped him with one sentence. Read it carefully, because once I walk out, the story changes. And this time, you don't control it. As the door shut behind me, I didn't feel victorious yet. I felt inevitable. And the final question that hit me, heavy, honest, was this. When your family needs you most, do you choose blood or freedom? The revenge wasn't screaming at them. It wasn't a slap. It wasn't revenge the way movies sell it. It was reality, delivered without cushioning. The next morning, I did 3 things. Quietly, legally, cleanly. First, I removed myself from every recurring task I'd been doing under their names. Bill scheduling, account logins, reminder systems, not sabotage, withdrawal. Second, I sent a single email to my father and mother with one line. I won't discuss finances without full transparency and written agreements. That sentence alone was a mirror they hated looking into because it forced them to admit they'd been using me informally, conveniently, and without respect. Third, and this was the part that made my hands shake, I requested copies of documents connected to the refinance because my name had been helpfully included on more than one thing in the past. Ryan sat beside me while I did it, not touching the keyboard, just present like an anchor. 2 days later, my father called, voice raw with anger, pretending to be authority. What did you do? He demanded. I almost smiled. Not because he was suffering, because he finally noticed my absence. Nothing, I said. I stopped. He cursed, then lowered his voice. We're about to be embarrassed, he admitted, and there it was. The real emergency. Not losing the apartment. Losing face. He begged me to come, talk to the bank, to smooth it over, to help your sister not lose the car. I closed my eyes and pictured that party again. The applause, the keys, the cleaning supplies, the calm cruelty of my mother's line. You taught me my place, I said. Now you're learning yours. That week, word traveled in our circle because crises always leak. Guests from the graduation party asked questions. Relatives who'd witnessed the awkward silence now understood what it meant. My parents tried to paint me as ungrateful, but narratives don't stick when the numbers don't cooperate. The convertible became a symbol, not a prize, something shiny bought with panic. My sister called next, not crying at first, just furious. You're ruining everything, she hissed. No, I replied. I'm refusing to be ruined, so you can keep pretending everything is fine. She tried to threaten me with family loyalty. I answered with a boundary. She went quiet, then asked, smaller, what do you want? That question mattered. It was the first time anyone in that house asked what I wanted. I didn't say an apology, because apologies without change are just performances. I want accountability, I said. I want you to stop using love as a leash. The last call came from my mother again, voice trembling. Please, come home, she said, like the voicemail from the start. This time, I pressed play in my head and finally heard it clearly. Fear of consequences, not love for me. I took a breath and answered in the only way that fit the woman I was becoming. I'm not coming home to disappear, I told her. If you want me in your life, you'll meet me in the light. Then I ended the call. Not as punishment, but as proof. The shadow had stepped out, and the family who built their comfort on my silence would have to learn how to stand without it.